my brain can say, oh, I love sex, which this is literally my story. I love sex. I love pleasure. I love, sluttiness and wild abandonment. But my body's like, fuck you, no, we're not doing that. Absolutely not. That's really unsafe. And so often people are having this sort of what I call like a double bind. Like I want to or I have to, but I can't. It's like an internal tug of war.
There's something coming over me. I never ever felt so free. I'm flying out the energy. Yeah, I'm feeling kind of crazy. Everything's so amazing. Yeah, I jump so high. I hit the sky. I can't believe I'm so happy. Yeah, I'm feeling good. Never thought I could dream so big, and it's so good. Yeah,
I'm Sammy Amounts. This is Happy Slut. Welcome back, Pine Cones. This week on the show, I have a guest that does work in an area that is so very impactful on our society, but doesn't get talked about that much. And that is the issue of people who have endured sexual trauma in their lives, who want to have an empowered, delightful sex life, but find themselves getting into sexual encounters that are consensual and then freezing or fawning because something about the encounter triggers a trauma memory or even just triggers a subconscious trauma that they can't even remember what it is, and it causes them to shut down in the middle of a sexual encounter, which can turn what was a consensual encounter into a non-consensual encounter without their partner being aware of it. The reason I'm so interested in this is because I've seen so many examples of it in my life. It's a gray area in the world of sexual assault that is not talked about very often. Because of movements like Me Too, there has been this strong cultural emphasis on believing women and believing victims. And that is very important in a patriarchy because women and victims of sexual assault in general have not historically been believed or taken seriously. They have historically and traditionally been dismissed. One of the tenets of patriarchy is we allow men to do whatever they want sexually to women and children, and we don't question them on it. We question the women and children. We make it their fault. Well, you shouldn't have gone on that date. You shouldn't have worn that skirt. You shouldn't have gone with them into that room. It's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. And so that creates this situation where we are believing victims, and that's great. But we're not attuned to the gray areas that are created by a society with that much sexual trauma. And one of those gray areas is this issue of traumatized people fawning, freezing, and otherwise dissociating in the middle of what started out as consensual sexual encounters. When I was in my early 30s, I had this wonderful boyfriend who I love to this day so much. And we were polyamorous. So he'd go on dates with other people, and he went on this one date. He'd been planning with this girl for a while. She was a friend of ours. And they had discussed the date in detail in advance. She was very interested in exploring kink dynamics and exploring her submissive side. And she wanted my boyfriend to explore this with her, fulfilling the dominant role in a scene. And they worked out the scene, and they worked out what they were going to do on the date, and they agreed on everything in advance, and they had a safe word. And he goes on the date and comes back after and tells me that they had the most delicious sex. He felt so proud of himself for giving her the dom experience that she wanted, and he was glowing. He was in the best mood. A year later, he saw her at her place of work from the street and went inside to say hi. He had been a little confused because after that, what he thought was a great date, they never went out again. She stopped responding to his messages. And so he figured, oh, let me just go say hi and maybe I can figure out what happened. But before he could get inside to say hi to her, she had run into the back room, and he saw that she had a fearful expression on her face. So then he started asking mutual friends questions. And he found out that her experience of that date that they had, that he was so giggly and sparkly about, was that he had raped her. It was devastating for everybody. Obviously, it was devastating for her. She didn't go and try to press charges or anything. I think she had an understanding that his experience was not the same as hers. At least I hope she did. But she still told a lot of people that he raped her. And this was my first experience with this phenomenon, which I've since seen recreated many times just within my circles. I knew him well enough to know that he was the kind of sexual partner who would stop immediately if he got any whiff of discomfort or pain or a change of heart in his partner. They had a safe word. She never used it. She never said no. She never gave any outward indication that she was no longer enjoying the encounter. They weren't fucked up on alcohol or drugs. He had no idea. And he was heartbroken. And we had long discussions over whether he should try to apologize or if that would be re-traumatizing. But for me, it was really eye-opening. Like, oh, okay, yeah, sexual assault is a huge problem. And we need to believe victims. But there are situations in a world where so many people are survivors of sexual assault and sexual trauma. There are gray areas where a person can feel they've been raped and the person they were with did not rape them. At the same time, it's really rough. So when I found Rae Halder's work online, I first discovered her on Facebook, and she was talking about this exact thing: how to help victims of sexual trauma reclaim their sexuality so that they no longer dissociate, freeze, or fawn during sexual encounters that their minds want to be having, but their bodies are shutting down against as a protective measure. I was immediately like, I need to have her on my show. And I slid into her DMs, and I'm so grateful that she said yes. So, after this very long preamble, here is Rae Halder. Rae Halder, welcome to Happy Slut.
Thank you. It's so awesome to be here.
Are you feeling happily slutty today?
I am. I have on kind of like a little slutty dress for those who can't see. I'm sorry.
It's so cute, and that little cleavage tattoo is making me have dreams of getting my own because it's so alluring. That's wonderful. What's the rest of it? You don't have to show us, but like, what's the rest of that tattoo?
Oh, I mean, I can, but it's actually like a tattoo that I got stick and poke. My friend stick and poked this for 4 hours. It was the most painful tattoo I've ever received. But it was really like ceremonial, and it was after I'd gotten out of a wildly abusive relationship. That was an extremely like pivotal moment in my growth and journey as a human. And so this was like an image that we created together that was really representing boundaries, but also my own knowing of like self-alignment and like coming home to myself. So there's a lot of symbolic representation of what that means.
It's a liberation
It
tattoo.
is a liberation tattoo. Yeah. I mean, to most people, it just looks sort of like a design, but yeah, it's got
It's
liberation.
beautiful. And stick and poke is where they don't use the machine. They're literally just doing the needle.
He literally was doing a needle and did like the entire thing. And it's like so well done for a stick and poke too. Like usually stick
Yeah.
and poke can be a little like mergy, like the ink and stuff, but she's got precision inside of her.
That's incredible. Okay, well, great segue, this liberation tattoo from this terrible relationship.
Yeah.
So your work I find so fascinating. I really have not found a lot of therapists, coaches, healers who focus on this particular area of people who've been sexually traumatized trying to reclaim their sexuality and hitting this wall of, oh my God, I wanted to do this, but now I'm frozen. Now I'm fawning. Now this interaction no longer feels good. And it's such a common thing. It's ubiquitous in a world where being sexually traumatized is more common than not, especially for women, but also many men and lots and lots of non-binary people. So I really find it fascinating, and I'm really curious how you got to the point where this became your specialty. So if you could take us through the key points of your origin story, and you can go back as far as childhood. I'm just fascinated by how you got here.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it would take us back to childhood. I mean, I think, in some ways, I feel like I just have this like inherent, not to be cheesy, but like soul path where like I was always meant to do sexuality work in the world. Like that just feels and has felt very real and alive to me. But when I was 3, that's when I first experienced sexual abuse. It wasn't anyone inside of my family, but it was a person who it was like a foreign exchange student who was actually later even convicted of like felony for, essaying 2 young little girls. But that experience I kept very like repressed and very I have one memory of being like 7 years old, and when that person got convicted, my parents sat us down at a table and like asked us, did anything happen? And I remember being the little sensitive being that I was and have been my entire life. Like I remember thinking, oh, what I have to tell them is going to make this like more intense and more dramatic. And like they were already really panicked. Like I could tell that they were like shaken and, upset. And so like I didn't tell them anything that happened because it felt like to little 7-year-old me, I was even like trying to almost like protect them. Or I think in some ways I just thought, well, like the way that they're reacting, like this doesn't seem like in proportion to how they're reacting. So like I don't need to tell it or share it or let them know about it. But then basically I didn't really remember, like it's like I really repressed the memory and I didn't even have much awareness of it, which is interesting because I was also like a women's studies major and like was doing work in sexual violence and all these, like my life path was sort of like leading me there. But I really
Mm.
didn't have it come to me as like a strong memory until I was 22 years old. It was after I graduated from college and I moved to
Wow.
Indonesia for a year. And when I
Wow.
was in Indonesia, I was like living with an Indonesian family. I was working for an Indonesian organization. I was in Papua, which is the other half of Papua New Guinea. I was very like culturally, like I wasn't like hanging out with other expats. Like I was very like in the culture and being like immersed in the language. And so I had a lot of free time where like I didn't know a single thing anyone was saying, especially at like the first couple of months. So I like journaled a ton and I was like reading a lot. And prior to that, I had been like so high achiever, just like go, 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 like so immersed in my life that I don't think I ever had the opportunity for this like experience to sort of reveal itself to me. And while I was there, there was I was like there through an organization. This organization did have like a little English library. And so I went on a trip 2 months in and got some books from the little English library to read when I went back. And one of them was called The Perks of Being a Wallflower. And it's actually like written for like young adults. And I'd never read
Yeah.
it. And it looked interesting to me. So I read it and, I guess spoiler. So anyone who doesn't want this spoiled, maybe cover your ears. But in the book, it's about a young boy who was sexually assaulted by his aunt and he didn't remember it. And so it happened when he was little. And then like the whole book is sort of like his journal entries of like him recalling this experience. And I read the book and it like haunted me. Like it was like, I just kept thinking about it. Like it was so like yeah, haunted is like the best word for it. It just like was like coming in my dreams, like coming into me in so many different ways. And then one morning I woke up and I like saw the book over on a little shelf that I had. And I just thought in my head, wow, it's so interesting that this boy was sexually assaulted, but like didn't remember it. Like that's so interesting. And then I had a voice within, without, who knows, that said, well, why is that so interesting? The same thing happened to you. And I like literally had like a panic attack, like in that moment. Like I just started like kind of freaked out because it was, yeah, even saying it now, like I feel emotion, which is so interesting because I've shared this story like so many times. But it was just like in that moment, I just felt like, oh my God, my whole life has been a lie.
Hmm.
Like recognizing who I was like based on this experience.
It's amazing what our brains do to protect us from those experiences.
Oh, 100%. Our brains and bodies are brilliant. Our nervous system, that's like so much of my work. It's like our nervous system responses are actually wildly intelligent, even when they look quote unquote crazy or like their behaviors we don't love, it's still just like, yeah, but how smart of us to be doing that to protect us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to get more into that later when we start talking about your work. But for now, where we're at in your story, so you have this revelation, this remembering that hits you like a ton of bricks, obviously.
Yeah.
Just hit me like a ton of bricks. And by the way, your emotion is beautiful, and that was affecting me too.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. What next? Where did you go from there? How did you even begin to process this?
Yeah, well, I sort of freaked out. And then I did go to the leaders of the organization that I was there with. I grew up Mennonite. And so this was actually an organization as part of the Mennonite church. And I talked to someone who felt like a very safe person. And then she was a very safe person. She responded very like, all the right ways that one should respond, which is great to be met that way. Because I was feeling a lot of shame and like confusion about it. And then she talked to, I think, like a psychologist or like a therapist or someone in the States. And the recommended advice, which I honestly don't think was like wrong or bad. And I think it was actually like maybe the right move, but it was kind of like, honestly, she should just sort of like sit with it and not try to dig into it if she wants to stay there, because the journey of working with sexual abuse is like, it will probably get worse before it gets better, or like it'll get more intense before it gets better. So if she feels stable and she feels okay just sort of like sitting with the knowing, but not like acting on it or doing anything with it, that is probably the best thing. And then she should get therapy when she comes back to the States. And I remember the person's advice was kind of like, if she goes into it there or, like tries to sort of dig into it, like she might have to come back early or something like that. Like it might be so intense that like it would just sort of disrupt the entire experience. And so I sort of did do that. I didn't suppress it again, but I was just sort of like, okay, I'm putting this on a shelf and I will deal with that later. And like that is knowledge that I have, and there it sits. And so then when I came back to the States through that organization, you got, I think it was 6 free sessions of therapy. And so I looked up like a therapist who was like, I think she called herself like a woman's therapist. Like at the time, therapy was very like new to me. I'd never done it before, but I looked her up. And so then I had the 6 free sessions with her, but she was like an out-of-pocket therapist. It wasn't like through insurance. So after those 6 sessions were complete, she was very much like, I think you need to continue therapy. And at the time I was not, like I was like working like a coffee shop job and like a co-op job, and like I'd been a volunteer for a year. I had no money basically. And she was like, I think you're going to have to tell your parents if you want support paying for this, and so she strongly encouraged me to tell my parents and to talk to them about it, which up to that point I was like very like did not want to do. Like I was very like, absolutely not.
Had it ever come up again since that conversation when you were 7 and you hid what you knew from them?
Never. Mm-mm.
Wow. Wow. That impulse to protect your parents because you saw that they were already upset by the situation, even at the age of 7, feels so emotionally resonant for me.
Hey.
I feel like I've seen that show up in so many stories of sexual assault where victims see the discomfort and turmoil in the people who love them, and they're like, okay, well, now I have to comfort you. Now I have to protect you. And who is protecting the person who was assaulted, you
Mm.
know? Yeah. All right. So now you're faced with this, oh my God, I have to tell my parents.
Yes, which felt very, it's not surprising, but it is surprising. But yeah, felt extremely vulnerable to me. But I did it. I told them, and they did agree to pay for the therapy.
Well, how did they react? Like, did you enter into another space where you felt like you had to protect them or comfort them, or?
Wait, I don't even really remember. Like, I think it was sort of so intense for me and like so like uncomfortable for me. Honestly, I think I just sort of blanked it out. I just remember that they agreed to pay for the therapy.
You got what you needed. Mission
I got what I needed.
accomplished.
Yeah, I think they did feel, they definitely felt guilty. They felt bad. They felt probably shame. But like the actual words or what they said or what that communication was feels extremely blurry to me.
All right. So they agree to pay for therapy. You continue on.
Yeah. So then I go to therapy and like I fucking love it. Can I say F words on here? Sorry.
Yeah, you can say all the words. Cunt, shit.
Sort of
Fuck,
came
yeah.
out of my mouth. I have a podcast. even in my work, I'm always like, if you don't like a practitioner who like says naughty words, then I'm not the girl for you. But yeah, so I loved it. I like, and I think that I've just always been someone very curious and very self-reflective. And I just hadn't ever had like sort of a space to do that in or to be in with that. But I found it, I mean, it was hard. Like, don't get me wrong. It's not like I was like, oh my God, this is fun. Like, not at all. It was actually quite miserable. And I remember even like I had sort of my therapy. I learned I cannot work on the days that I have therapy because I would just be like a wreck. And I sort of had a routine where I'd like go to this little Thai restaurant and I would let myself get a Thai iced tea and I'd get like pad Thai and then I would lay in my bed and I would eat it in my bed while like bawling my eyes out. It was like my Tuesday routine and I didn't work on Tuesdays and like it was just like, okay, that's what I do on Tuesdays. It was sort of like a weird time in my life too because I'll also simultaneously the person I had moved to Pittsburgh to like live with was a friend from college. And I don't really want to speak for what her experience was, but I would say it was sort of like a psychotic break type of experience. Super intense, like blamed the whole thing on me, even though I'd only been there for 6 weeks and like literally like ghosted me, like disappeared from the apartment that was under her name.
What?
Moved out without telling me. Like it was like crazy, crazy, crazy experience for me. So weirdly, my therapy actually ended up focusing so much on that, but in these ways that it also like tied in strange ways into sort of my childhood experiences too, because this experience with this friend and like having like such an intense sort of ghosting and also like these blame energies coming at me and like really confused about what's mine, what's not mine, what did I do, what didn't I do, like what is happening here. I felt the worst I'd ever felt in my entire life. Like I was just yeah, like a bundle of emotions. I remember going to like yoga. I like stopped going to yoga classes because I would just sit there bawling the entire classes and I'd be like embarrassed. But it was like this cracking open. And before that, I had such sort of like a hard ass demeanor. And like I said, I was just sort of like this high achiever person and I was just so go, 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 go. And I was sort of like impenetrable in a lot of ways. And so it was like this huge dissolving of like a false identity of who I thought I was and like how I identified with myself and like this really deep opportunity to like meet my emotions and meet, all these aspects of myself that like up to that point I really didn't ever cry. Like I was a very sort of hardened and like, I was not a very emotional person, or at least not seemingly an emotional person, which is hilarious because I'm like one of the most emotional persons I know at this point.
Do you think that was a result of what happened to you? For all of my straight and bi men listening and my gay and bi women listening, everybody who has sex with women and wants to do better, I've got a product for you. Have you heard of Kenneth Play? He is an Adonis of a man, and he has put together a video course teaching others how to please women the way only he knows how. I have personally had the pleasure of spending an intimate evening with Kenneth. I don't think I've ever had a first-time sexual encounter with somebody that was just 100% pleasurable. There was never a moment of pain. There was never a moment of meh. He knew my body better than I knew my body. He found pleasure spots in me that I did not know I had, and he made me come many times. I have gifted his web course, Beyond Satisfied Pro, to lovers of mine, and in every case, they have become better lovers as a result. And now I would like to gift this to you with a 15% discount. Go to kennethplay.com/closeted. That link gets you 15% off Kenneth's Beyond Satisfied Pro course. This is just for my listeners. Trust me. No one regrets being great in bed, and this course will get you there. kennethplay.com/closeted. As a kid, or partially, or were there cultural factors in your family or your community that contributed to that?
All the above. I think there's
Yeah.
so many aspects of it. I think it was very much the experience that happened to me and sort of learning, oh, no one's going to actually help me or protect me or like do anything about this.
It's all on you.
It's all on me. And that's like a really strong like theme that has existed like through my whole life that actually even just like in the past couple of months I've been really like working with it and like really trying to like reprogram my system that like maybe that's not true. Maybe support really truly is available to you. I mean, there were, and I even now I'm kind of like I want to protect my parents because I do truly believe they did the best that they could. But even through my childhood, I had a lot of episodes of like really deep depression, and like I was like a cutter when I was like in like fifth, sixth, seventh grade. And I know I even like asked my mom for therapy at one point, and her response, unfortunately, was very dismissive. Like it was just sort of like, oh, kids go through hard things. They just feel lots of feelings. Hormones are changing. Like you don't need therapy. Like it was just very like, whatever. And so I
Yeah.
think like I really learned like, oh, like no one's going to support me with all of these like hard feelings I have and all this like intensity. And I am also neurodivergent. Like I've been diagnosed ADHD. There's things in that I definitely identify as a highly sensitive person. Like I was definitely sort of like a gifted kid. And I think in that too, there was a lot of high masking. And I think part of the high masking, especially with the high sensitivity, was like, don't let anyone see your sensitivity. It was something like saved for behind closed doors, but like I knew it couldn't be met. I knew that the family system and the structure was not built to support or hold or like be with that. And so it was just like, oh, I just have to like take it into the closet, and like be with it there. And
Put
so
on your armor to go out into the world.
exactly. Yeah. So I think without even realizing it, yeah, that experience when I was like 22, 23, and like going to therapy and like so emotional and just sort of like totally felt totally fucked up. It was also this opportunity for me to like really shed a lot of layers of these pieces of myself.
Better it happened then than way later in life,
It's
eh?
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
That's
grateful for that to happen at that point in time.
so you go through this therapy journey, you've been cracked wide open. You went from being this like armored, I don't cry kind of warrior badass into this puddle of goo on the floor on your way to becoming a different kind of warrior badass. So I don't want to assume, I know that healing is a lifelong process, but what were the things that led you to the work that you have now? Like, were you looking to become some kind of a therapist or coach or
Not totally, no. I think I was always sort of like curious of what I wanted to do. Writing has always been an aspect of who I am. And I think that's how I sort of went the communication route. I originally went for graphic design, but then after doing that, because I'm also very like artistic, but then I got really involved in the radio station at my school and like really involved in like the school newspaper and really seeing like, oh, I have a talent for like written word as well. And so that's the route I went. So, when I was that age, I was sort of looking for writing jobs. I was the social media manager for an organization called Women Under Siege, which documented how sexualized violence was used in conflict zones. Uh,
wow?
and I was doing like then some like freelance copywriting work. So that was sort of the world that I was in. But based on this experience that happened to me during this time of just like darkness and like super intensity, there was another person who also went to the same Mennonite college that I went to, but who was like 5-ish years older than me. So at the time, 22-year-old myself, she seemed like really old. She was probably like 27, 28.
So mature, so
I was
wise.
like, "Oh my gosh." And she was, like, looking to get into sort of, like, coaching and, like, life coaching, I think. Like, she was curious about that, and then her and her husband also owned, like, this building that they were renovating and had different floors and stuff. So she offered, I don't even know how it came up, but she offered to do, like, a trade with me where she would sort of do life coaching with me, and I would help with the renovations, which basically meant, like, I painted walls. It was actually kind of fun. Through doing this like life coaching with her, what I like created or what was born was a blog that I created that was called Our Stories Untold. And the original intention was to like collect stories of other like Mennonite people who had experienced sexualized violence because probably not a lot of people know much about Mennonites, but they're like a pacifist church and they're really, really strong about nonviolence. And I was like, this is so weird that this church that preaches nonviolence, it is like literally like obsessed with pacifism and like peace and like turning the other cheek, doesn't talk about this stuff. Like there's nothing, no one. And I actually had a dream that while I was on a plane visiting friends in San Francisco that there was a voice that told me, like, you're not the only one. Like, there's so many others out there. And so I created this blog and it sort of blew up. Like, I didn't expect it really to do much. I didn't even know what I was doing. But at the time, it really did make a giant splash in both the Mennonite church, but also just sort of in like Christian denominations as a whole. Because at the time, so this was back in like 2012. Like at the time, this was like pre Me Too. And so there just wasn't, and especially in like Christian spaces, there wasn't a lot out there about this kind of stuff. Like it was pretty cutting edge at that time. I feel like now, like you can find a lot of that stuff, but at the time, there wasn't a lot.
Yeah, you're a pioneer.
Yeah, in a way, yeah, it was. And it kind of used both my women's studies major and my communications major in this interesting way as well.
And your personal experiences. I mean, I talk a lot about spinning shit into gold. You have definitely spun shit into gold with all of this. Okay, go on.
So yeah, so then that became a piece of my work. Like I became sort of like an advocate, activism, like wrote articles, collected people's stories, went and spoke on stages, went to different, speaking events. Simultaneously, I was also like on this like really deep spiritual journey, like sort of like a spiritual awakening. I've always say like, just like I kind of feel like sexuality work was always sort of like a part of my soul essence. I was always like a little mystic, like even though I grew up in this Christian denomination.
Well, what is Christianity if not mysticism? I mean, we talk about it like it's this normal thing, but it is a mythology that is wildly fantastical.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Like there's water under wine. What the heck?
He rose from the dead, born of a virgin. Like, come on, it's mysticism. It's just so normalized in our society that we think of it as something that's not magical, but it's magical.
It's
magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, and I'd always been very like drawn to the goddess and drawn to like when I was very little. I don't know. My mom says I tell this story not 100% accurately, but I don't remember the 100% accurate story, so I'll tell it my version of it.
Yes.
Which was at like age 2 or 3 in like a church setting, I actually stood up and said like, God not a he, God a she. And everyone was like, what? And my mom was like, I never taught her that. Like, I don't know. But yeah, there was always this like goddess thing in me when I was in college, even at this Mennonite school. I did an independent study on the feminine divine and was trying to understand like where was the goddess stamped out in Christianity and at what point did it get lost and like where does that live, and really got into the Shekinah like in Judaism. And yeah, I was very into understanding like the goddess aspects of and the feminine divine aspects of religion, not just Christianity, but religion.
Famously missing from patriarchal religions. How did all of this, like this journey of learning and training and discovering and cracking open, coincide with your own personal sex life and love life?
Mm-hmm. As this was all happening, I was pretty like celibate, not even necessarily on purpose. I think I was just so emotionally like distraught and like things were so intense, like a relationship was just out of the question. And I didn't really care. Like I wasn't even like thinking about it. It was just like, bleh. So I was doing this. I also simultaneously, I'm like, there's so many layers to this, but simultaneously on this spiritual journey, while I'm writing this Mennonite blog about sexualized violence, I also bought this thing called a Greyhound Discovery Pass on the Greyhound bus system, which literally no longer exists. But it was a 3-month-long pass where you could get on any Greyhound bus anywhere and go wherever you wanted within Canada, Mexico, and the U.S.
Wow.
As long as there was space on the bus. Like basically it was like a free pass and it was only $500. Like the whole thing was like so crazy. So I did this Greyhound bus journey for 3 months where I just traveled around and I did have a really wide network of people I knew. One thing that is cool about Mennonites is like they play this thing called the Mennonite game where you can kind of just like meet anyone, anywhere, any place and have sort of an in. So while I'm doing all this, I'm like, I bought like an iPad so I could like do my work on the bus and like do all these things from anywhere. On one of my stops in a bookstore, I picked up a book called Vagina by Naomi Wolf. And it had like just come out. And it was like such an awakening for me. Like reading that book was like, whoa, wild. And then also on this journey, I passed through Southern California where one of my close college friends was dating someone and living with him and his brother. And his brother was sort of this like total like new agey, funny, spiritual boy. And I was very intrigued by him. Like everything he was sharing with me at that time, I wasn't really exposed to like new age. Like that word didn't even mean anything to me. But everything he was speaking about felt resonant in some way inside of myself, and like the way I had viewed Christianity or viewed the feminine divine, or like, it was this interesting, like I said, a spiritual awakening. It was like, oh, these concepts he's sharing with me. Like he was telling me about like white lighting. And I remember in the moment I was just like, well, isn't that just prayer? Like it was just like
making those connections. Yeah.
but it was like really opening. Now I kind of scoff at new age, but at the time it was like so opening to me of just like, oh, and like understanding this mystical aspect of Christianity, like in that relationship. And so I propositioned him. I actually like wrote him.
I was just going to ask, were you kind of hot for him too? Because I've been hot for that
Really
guy.
hot for
I've
him. I was
so
like,
been hot
he's
for the
happy.
crystally new age guy. Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
so
Give it
it's
to me.
actually my friend who like encouraged me, the friend who was dating his brother. She was like, you should proposition him. And at that time, I had never done anything like that. Like, I was like, what?
But had you had sex before at this
I
point?
had sex before. Yeah. I had, we don't even have to backtrack into those stories, but I had sex, but it had never been that great. And
Unsatisfying.
very
Unsatisfying sexual debut, unsatisfying first few years. That was me too.
mostly unsatisfying. I did have a boyfriend in college who I was like madly, madly, madly in love with. And we did have some really beautiful and good sexual experiences. But even in that, I would shut down a lot. And there was like that dynamic of like push pull, and like sometimes I could be open, but most of the time, like I felt pretty collapsed and like shut down. And I didn't understand what was happening at the time. But looking back, I'm like, no, there's just a lot of threat response in my body. So it just got triggered really easily. And I didn't have any kind of concept of what was happening to me. So
and then when you don't understand what's happening, you are prone to like label yourself, oh, I'm just this way.
Oh, totally.
I'm just not that sexual of a person, or I'm just.
I think actually even before meeting Michele is his name, the one who I met in Southern California in Proposition. But prior to him, I think those couple of years where I was like in therapy and healing, I was actually kind of coming to a conclusion that like, I think I'm asexual. Like I was confused by that because I was also like a very sexual child. Like I, like explored my body a lot and like was very curious, but like I also had so much aversion to sex. So it was confusing to me. And I think at the time, the only language I could really find or understand was asexuality. So I just sort of was like, okay, maybe I'm asexual. Maybe that's what's going on.
But then you proposition, what's his name?
Michele. I propositioned Michele. And
Michele,
he's Italian.
Oh my God. An Italian hippie new age guy? Wow.
Right?
That's a lot. I would proposition him too. Okay. So you proposition him. What did he say? Did he go for it?
He was beyond excited. He was like, what? Because he thought I was really cool. Like he was like,
you are
with me. He was like, who is this girl? And I was like 4 years younger than him, but he was just like, wow, she's so adventurous. She's so like interesting. She does all these cool things. So I propositioned him. And at the time, he hadn't done it yet, but he, unbeknownst to me, he had sex before. Sorry.
Oh.
Like what I'm going to say. I know your face. You're like, what?
Wait, what? But he's that sexy?
He had sex, plenty of it. But he was like really into like reading about like Tantra and like sacred sexuality and these things.
Oh.
He hadn't practiced it yet. But he was reading and like kind of studying it and was like curious about it. Unbeknownst to me, I had no idea that was sort of going on in the background. So I propositioned him and his response was like, yes, I would be interested in like having a fun sexual experience with you tonight. I was literally there for one night. I was like, it has to be tonight. But he was like, but I would like to do it in a way that maybe you're not used to and like something that's like new for me.
Yes-anded your proposition.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was kind
I
of
love this.
okay. Like I didn't know what that meant. I was just like, all right.
I see your desire for sex and I'm going to raise you some Tantra.
Yeah. And like I said, he didn't actually know what he was doing. It was all just sort of, all he knew was, I want to do this different than I've ever done it before, which basically meant he like worshiped me. It was like total like goddess worship. And
Oh my gosh.
that had
Yes.
never happened to me. I'm like this 24-year-old, like thinking I'm asexual Mennonite girl, like sort of like of the world, but also kind of naive in many different ways. And yeah, he just like worshiped me, like truly, truly, truly worshiped me. And I had never felt my body like come alive like that before. I had never
Mm.
felt so like wet before, so open before. He spent maybe 3 hours of like foreplay before like penetration even ever happened.
Michele, if you're still out there and you have a dating profile, please send it to us so we can link it in the show notes.
He's actually just newly single, so
Perfect. You're going to get laid from this episode, Michele.
funny. Oh my God.
I had a similar experience when I was 24. I'd been having sex since I was 17 and I was so horny and pretty slutty, but like the experiences I was having for the most part were so unsatisfying. And then at 24, I propositioned someone who didn't yes and in the tantric direction, but he definitely yes and then worshipped me, and I'd never ever had that before, and it changed my life, and he's my partner now.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Took a long time getting there. There was a lot that happened in between, but like it was life-changing. Really amazing, worshipful, connected sex is life-changing.
It's completely life-changing. Yeah, I didn't even know that, like, existed. Like I said, I do wanna give a shout out to my college boyfriend because there were moments of that. There were glimpses of it, but there was nothing the way that this happened, like, where it was just like, holy
Yeah.
smokes. And yeah, it was a true sexual awakening. I mean, I really felt like it just transformed me and transformed my experience. I took the Greyhound bus up north, traveled up the coast. I was like desperate to get to San Francisco for Halloween because, I was a 24-year-old who thought like that was the only place you could ever celebrate Halloween. But then I came back. I circled back because I was like so freaking horny for this dude. And I was like, okay, I need this experience. And so then we spent like 2 weeks together and it was just sexual bliss. Like it was insane. Like I remember
Wow.
laying in bed and like sun was streaming on my body. And I remember just being like, oh my God, this is like communion with God. Like this is what God is. Like it was just
Yes.
so opening.
This is what God is. Yes, I had that same thought and experience. Like I get it now why people say they see God when they have really fabulous sex.
Right.
It is divine, and you can feel it in your body that it's sacred.
Yeah. So sacred. So, so sacred. Exactly.
So you have this massive sexual awakening with this
Mhm.
pine cones. You might have heard my interview with Dr. Elliot Justin, founder of FirmTech. And if you did, you know all about how exciting the tech ring is. It's a health wearable that improves men's sexual performance and gives them priceless health data that can act as an early indicator of heart issues. Yeah. During sex, it keeps you hard and makes your orgasms crazy. And during sleep, it tracks your nocturnal erections, which can literally tell you if you have issues with your heart or hormone levels before they get really bad. This product saves lives and marriages. And I'm really excited to give you a 15% discount on any of FirmTech's products with code CLOSETED at checkout. In addition to the tech ring, they also have the performance ring, a non-tech cock ring that features a really cool hook and eye design to avoid having to shimmy the ring down the length of your cock, which, if you've tried that, it's not the sexiest. They also have the Ring Mate, a vibrating attachment that works with the tech ring and performance ring and can also be used on one's fingertips. Ooh la la. Get yours today by going to myfirmtech.com and using code CLOSETED at checkout. myfirmtech.com, code CLOSETED at checkout. You're welcome. Delicious Italian hippie.
Yep.
So that's happening at the same time as you're starting this blog and doing this life coaching renovation trade with your friend
Mhm.
and moving into these directions. How did you turn that into let me be a trauma specialized somatic sex therapist?
Yeah, totally. Well, so through my own wanting to understand what was going on with me, because I will say then after leaving Michele, I will say we did have a 6-year-long relationship, so it wasn't just like one and done, but it also took its own journey and its own, and we're still like besties. So I felt comfortable saying his name because there's still
I figured.
after that experience, I developed, and I think I had already had this developing, but it came into like full blown, it's called interstitial cystitis, which is where they think it's sort of an autoimmune condition where like your body attacks your bladder because it thinks that there's an infection there, but there really isn't an infection there. And so what happens is like your bladder lining gets eroded. And so then it
Yeah.
burns like crazy and it feels like you have a UTI, but you don't. And so
Yeah.
I kept being convinced that I had like chronic yeast infections. I had chronic UTIs. I would go to doctors. I would go, try to figure it out. And everyone would be like, there's nothing. We don't know what's wrong with you. Like literally tell me it was all in my head. So
I hate the medical
I know,
establishments treating
it's
women.
so frustrating. Yeah, I actually self-diagnosed myself and then finally, like, after, like, 2.5 years of pretty severe suffering, found a urologist who, like, knew exactly what it was, knew exactly how to treat it, even with, supplements, like, he was like, "I'm not even gonna put you on the medicine because I think it's expensive and stupid, and, like, I know of this supplement that, like, works super well for people." But so this is, like, very much I will say this has been the theme of my life. Big openings, big expansions, total and utter collapse. And so, long story short of how I got into this work was like, I was like, what the fuck? Like, what is going on with me? And like, why is this pattern here? What does it even mean? Like, why do I have these like really beautiful, amazing, explosive, phenomenal experiences? And then they're coupled with these huge collapses or these like, I have lots of different chronic illness symptoms. With all these things that are going on. And so my journey of becoming the practitioner that I am was truly a self journey and like being like, why does this happen to me? Like, what is going on?
So I would love to talk about where we kind of started, which is all over your website and your posts on social media, which, by the way, I love. You're such an incredible writer. Everyone go follow her. So I assume that you've experienced this thing where you're in the middle of a consensual sexual encounter and then your body goes into dissociation or freeze or fawn response.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
If I were coming to you as a client and I was describing that that was happening to me and, I have sexual trauma in my past, how do you approach working with somebody like that? Like, where do you start? I know you've trained in multiple modalities. You've got a master's degree. You're incredibly educated. You've also got incredible life experience and a real thirst and curiosity for exploring the deeper things within yourself and others. And I'm sure that your work is personalized. But where would you start with a client who came to you with that particular issue and said, I really want to be able to own my sexuality and I just feel so disconnected from it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so to me, what that would point to is like someone has like a pretty chronic freeze that is existing in their body, which means that there are past experiences, past emotions, past things that have never been metabolized. And what I mean by metabolize is like literally like digestion. Like they haven't been digested in the body. So they're still living and existing in the person's psyche, in the person's energy field, in the person's body, soma, whatever we want to say. And so without the person, and it's completely unconscious, but without the person knowing it, those things are rising to the surface in some way, shape, or form in present day. So instead of being able to be present to this moment, to this person, to this experience, to this sensation, they're being transported to a past experience, but maybe it's too unsafe to feel, maybe it's too unsafe to experience. And so what the body does is it like dissociates or it shuts down or it's just like, nope, not doing that because it's a wildly intelligent protective strategy. It's like, okay, we're going to keep you safe and we're going to keep you safe by shutting you down. And so many people who have that experience have some sort of like contract or story or belief system that was created that is probably something around, and those specifics could be 1,000 different ways, but something around like being sexual is unsafe, like having sex is
Mhm.
unsafe, like being intimate with another person is unsafe. Like there's some sort of something that was created and developed as like a pretty hardwired belief system, completely unconscious. So, my brain can say, oh, I love sex, which this is literally my story. I love sex. I love pleasure. I love, sluttiness and wild abandonment of my being. But my body's like, fuck you, no, we're not doing that. Absolutely not. That's really unsafe. And so often people are having this sort of what I call like a double bind. Like I want to or I have to, but I can't. It's like an internal tug of war.
Which sounds so debilitating and difficult to address. So, like, Is there hope? Like, can we heal these things within ourselves?
There's definitely hope. There's absolutely hope. I wouldn't do the work I do in the world if there was no hope. But also, I will say what I have learned, and this isn't for everyone. What I have learned for people like myself who are like highly sensitive people with highly sensitive nervous systems. Maybe they are neurodivergent. Maybe they're not. Maybe they just feel very sensitive. The work doesn't happen the way you want the work to happen. Like, as in, for so many years, I was like, oh, if I just do all these sexuality practices, if I just do this, if I just do that, like, oh, I'll heal and I'll be like the wild orgasmic woman that I know I am underneath everything and that I've experienced when I was 24 in this goddess worship moment. And what I had to learn in like sort of a hard way was like, actually, in order to meet these experiences, I have to slow everything way down. And I have to get really intimate with understanding my own body and understanding these like fragile moments where like it's almost like a switch flips, where it's just like, nope, not doing it. And like, oh, what are those little small minor things? And a big piece of it was like, I recognize that like when it comes to sexuality as a whole, like the idea of choice and agency in my mind made so much sense and was very alive, but my body didn't actually feel like it had choice and agency. So of course I would shut down in sexual experiences if something deep inside of me was saying, I don't actually have choice here. I don't actually have agency here. I'm not actually in control here. And unbeknownst to me, I was always sort of like catering my desire towards the other or others, like whoever was sort of in front of me. And so it's like, yeah, of course, over time, your system would shut down and like not want to do that because there is this chronic freeze and fawn dynamic playing out. And so a lot of it also is like constantly needing to reorient myself back to like, no, I do have choice. No, I do want to be here. No, I do get to experience my own pleasure for me, not for someone else. And also understanding the dynamics that really shut me down. It's funny because my current partner actually talks about this. He's like, you love to be adored. You want to be adored. You know, he's never used the word worship, but essentially that's what he's saying. Like he always uses the word adored. Like you just want to be like praised and adored, but like you don't want anyone to like grab at you. It has to come from within. So you want to be praised and adored and like, ooh, look at me, look at me. But like in order for you to feel like your sexual energy, you can't be grabbed at or like possessed or like owned. It's weird because, you know, in some ways I like sort of ownership play, but on a deeply somatic trauma level, like I have to know I have agency and that
And autonomy.
and autonomy. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Because that wound is about being used by somebody who is much bigger and more powerful than you
Exactly.
and feeling like you had no say in the matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
The reviews on your website are wonderful. The people you've worked with say things like, if you had told me 6 months ago that I would be able to experience empowered sexuality, I would have laughed in your face. And here I am. So how can people find you? How can people work with you? Are you accepting new clients? Everybody needs your help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. I work with a pretty limited one-on-one client base, mostly because I do have a lot of chronic health issues. So I have to just be really careful about scheduling. I do have one spot open for new clients, and it's always like worth to reach out to me because I also have like a wait list. So I'll always like keep people in mind, especially if they're like, not right now, but maybe another time. I'm like, okay, well, I have a spot open now. Anyone can reach out at any time. I also have a lot of group programs. Like right now, I'm running a program called Erotic Safety, which is like a mini course. It was supposed to be just 6 weeks. It's ending up to be 8 weeks, which is great and fine. But after this, I'm running a longer term program called Erotic Reclamation, which also offers some like group coaching pieces inside of that space. That program starts in July of 2026. And also have a program called Erotic Embodiment, which is much more like actual like ritualistic experiences of like working with yourself and your body. But I do have a sort of a prerequisite that either people have to have taken erotic safety or erotic reclamation and or have to have done some sort of somatic trauma resolution work before entering into that container, just because I really want people to have like the baseline of support and understanding of what's happening in their body before they go into a sort of ritualistic embodiment space with themselves. So yeah, lots of different avenues that people can work with me, and they can find me. I have a Substack that's at Real Sex. I just started it actually last month. My Facebook is just at Rae Halder, RaeHalder. And my Instagram handle is like Rachel.Ray.Halder at Instagram.com. So, and my website,
Wonderful.
RaeHalder.com, if people want to go there.
All of these links will be in the show notes. Check out Rae, check out her work. Lots of ways to work with her. So you could try for that one-on-one spot or get into one of these group workshops, which I'm now very much considering for myself because I think that'd be so amazing and expansive. Thank you so much for coming and talking to me today, Rae. You're a joy and a delight, and thank you for the work that you do.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was so enjoyable. So pleasurable, I should say. Thank you.
Yes, we are happy sluts here.
Oh, Happy Slut.
Feeling so alive. So long till the sorry days. Yeah, bye.
If you heard or saw yourself in this conversation and you want to work with Rae, there are so many ways to do it, like we talked about. All of those links are in the show notes, so please go check her out, get with her, and let her help you get to erotic reclamation and safety, which is something we all deserve to have. Thank you so much for listening and coming back for another episode of Happy Slut. I love you guys. Please, if you haven't already, leave a review. We love your reviews. They help new listeners find the show. 5-star reviews with a little blurb about what you like about the show are the best. So thank you for leaving a review right now if you have not already. Support the show by following me on Instagram and TikTok at samia.mounts on Instagram, at Happy Slutcast on Instagram and TikTok. I post cute little clips from the episodes, and I post my Substack essays. And that is the other thing you can do to support the show is you can subscribe to my Substack, become a paying subscriber if you really want to support, samiamounts.substack.com. Lastly, you can send me an email at happyslutcast@gmail.com to let me know your thoughts, request that I cover certain topics, or bring certain guests onto the show, or you can pitch yourself to be a guest on the show. I accept pitches from all sorts of people. I love having regular folks who want to be anonymous and talk about their spicy sex lives. I also love having coaches, therapists, thought leaders, experts, sex educators. If you've got a story to tell and you want to have a fun, delicious, slutty conversation with me, email me at happyslutcast@gmail.com. That's all for now. I'll see you next week with another fun, flirty conversation. Bye, sluts.